and how we're gonna move forward with it in terms of next steps. So, and then we have a slide for the presentation. So maybe with the survey rather. So maybe that's when we can introduce the survey and then invite the participation. So let me share my screen. Can you see the deck?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me do a full screen. So yeah, hello everyone. Happy Tuesday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. But basically, Mert and I put together a data around work orders and how they can inform the life cycle cost of an asset. So, I mean, as I mentioned briefly earlier, this is just the structure, the skeleton to include those data piece in here. So it's nothing, you know, too in depth in terms of the contents of it, but at least it will help you understand why and how we're coming up with the data and what we're going to do with it. So just a bit of a context. I just want to sort of go back to that three-pager.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just 1 second. I
Sure.
think there's a little bit of maybe some work going on or kind of pounding sound from time to time. So if people can, I'm not sure where it's coming from, but I just wanted to let folks know. Anyway,
sorry. It must from me. I have a guys working on my backyard today.
Okay, that's okay. No problem at all. No problem at all.
I'll try to mute myself whenever I don't talk. But yeah, right now you're hearing that as well, right?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, Chris. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I'll be quick then. So basically, the three pagers that we work together as a guideline of our work. So it's the top right corner here, and in there we have objective statements as well as the life cycle component examples. So the objectives for this initiative is to expand upon the existing business process on asset lifecycle cost estimating with in-kind replacement during asset management plan development, and also pilot the process around a selected group of an asset. And it's the lifecycle component example. It's really the cradle to grave concept that you kind of purchase an equipment, you install it, and you do O&Ms throughout the life, and then we salvage and dispose at the end of the life. And I added this IAM framework asset management model that has that the blue wheels in the middle is really showing how life cycle of an asset goes from acquire to dispose. So just to give it a context. So and I also box this annual operating costs and annual maintenance costs because that's basically the numbers that Mert and I are presenting on a certain asset. So that's the background. And then Mert, I don't know if you're ready to present your data.
I
you
can.
Want me to do it first?
Yeah, well, yeah, why don't you go first since you're at it,
okay.
And then I can share my screen.
Sure. So then the next slide is the Metro Vancouver data. So what I've done is I searched all the work orders that are attached to a pump. So we have an equipment naming, and in the naming sequence we have a P as a pump, which is an equipment type acronym. And I searched all that, and then it returned 618 pumps. So there may not be the entire number of pumps at Metro Vancouver, but at least that's the data that we have. And so that's the first analysis that I'm going to show. And the second analysis is around the two individual pumps. One is from the wastewater treatment plant trickling filter pump, which is huge. It's about $850,000 pump. And then to compare that, I kind of went to the other extreme, which is the pump station sump pump, which is only $5,000. So I just want to compare the the work order cost throughout its life as compared to the replacement cost of those assets. So if I stop present this and then share my Excel. Sorry, any questions before I go into the Excel?
Well, yeah, just
No?
I was wondering, Chris, if I can just remind everybody. So
Sure.
there's only a few of us anyway, but in our document we wanted to cover life cycle costing. So, you know, in our future template, what that means is that ideally we're going to break things down into, you know, maintenance, operations, you know, related costs, for example, and then we can even add like commissioning and decommissioning to it if we want to take that step. And the maintenance, I think, you know, idea is to divide it into like, you know, our preventive versus corrective versus predictive sub buckets. And under the operations, I think the main item is going to be, I guess, power and you know, the routes that we do to sort of check on things, not for maintenance purposes, but operational discipline purposes. So, and I believe we want to bring in Eric to talk about the energy side of this at some stage to our team, because they are doing some work on that one. Sorry, yeah. So I just want to sort of quick recapture of those are the things that, so when we have an asset in our template in the future, we're going to have each of these contributing columns to its life cycle cost projection. So just trying to, you know, just visually imagine that.
Thanks, Mert. Actually, I have a slide at the end that sort of talks about the next steps that includes that energy components as well as the template. But thanks for reminding the group, Mert. So the data that I'm going to show you, it's in 2 files. So I'm going to share first file first. Can you see my spreadsheet?
Yes, Excel.
Yeah. Excel, right? So this is a table. I mean, there's a whole bunch of sort of raw data that's building up this table. But essentially, I searched up the 618 pumps in the database, and I was able to download the work orders in these categories. So as Mert said, you know, we have operations. We also have administration, improvements, and capital projects, and 3 types of PM. Well, the maintenance work, right? Preventive. We have a proactive, which is kind of predictive, and also corrective. And I basically was able to pull out the expenses in each year from 2017 to 2021. I mean, this is one of the challenges that bulk of our data is sort of coming in 2017. Because we didn't use the work order as much as we should, but basically that's basically the analysis that's based on. So and the total replacement value of that 495 of them has the replacement value field completed in the EAM, which is our CMMS, and that's about $26 million. And then that means we have about 130 pumps that don't have any replacement costs available. So I did some, you know, analysis based on the average and median of the pumps out of this 495 database, and try to estimate the remaining the value of the remaining pumps. And yeah, so for each year, 2017 to 2021, since 2017 doesn't have much data other than proactive, I considered 2018 to 2021, which is a 4-year span, to do the grand total. So we spent about $9.7 million over the 4-year period on the 618 pumps. And that is translated to about $2 million per year if we divide that by 4. And then what I did is I divide that by the replacement cost of the So the So this column talks about what's the composition of this grand total. Obviously, corrective is at 71%, proactive is at 22%. And then I compare that with the replacement cost. So I divide each of these work order categories by the total replacement cost as is first. and then these are the percentage, and then I divide it by the corrected replacement cost value. So really, these blue texts are what I presented in the graph that I'm going to show you. So this basically says that overall, over the 4-year period, we spent about 7.86% of its replacement value on a work order, in any types of work order, and about 5% on corrective, 1.7% on proactive, and then it goes on. So with that in mind, this is a chart that I want to show you. So the grand total, that 7.8% is right here, the yellow column, and then all the work order types that make up that 7.8% is here. So I mean, as we predicted, we have the corrective as the number one category of a work order, and then followed by proactive and preventive. So
Chris,
yeah,
maybe just pause if anybody, Casey or others, have any questions or comments on what you presented.
Sure.
So far.
For sure. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention this a little bit when I speak, Chris, but I had like a lot of data quality issues I needed to correct for in mine. I'm guessing you had some of those too.
Yeah. So replacement cost is one of them, but yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. That also I have a slide that summarizes what are the challenges and limitations of this analysis.
Okay.
Is, but good point. Okay, so
and Noemi, does that, and Deb, does all that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I'm driving, but I am kind of picturing everything on my head. But you know, one of the things I see is that I look forward to do this exercise. It's kind of a great example for for me to look into this. One of the problems we have is that, well, I'm not a planner, and I don't do the PMs or anything like that, but I think one of the challenges we have, and probably that's what you're referring to right now, is that sometimes we write work orders and people assign the work order to the wrong asset, for example, or like you're saying, that data quality is a big portion of this problem. So I think, again, I will look forward to kind of do this exercise myself and share it with the team to show that this may be useful for us.
yeah, thanks, Noemi. Is that how I pronounce your name? Noemi?
It's Noemi, yeah, the H is silent in Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, you probably read my slide already, but yeah, I have a slide that talks about that asset hierarchy and where the work order is being currently cut and how problematic that is in terms of the cost roll up and this type of analysis, right? Because that's a huge gap that we're seeing at Metro Vancouver as well. So, okay, so then let me jump to the second analysis, which is on the individual pumps. So can you see the spreadsheet again?
Yes.
Yeah, the pump details. So basically here I looked at 2 individual pumps. So the other one was 618 pumps as an aggregate, as a total analysis. This is more of an individual pump level. So first pump that I looked at is at a treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant. It's a trickling filter process. It's a secondary treatment. So we have a huge pump in the trickling filter, and that costs about $850,000 according to our CMMS. And the second pump that I looked at was from a pump station, and it's a sump pump, which is about $5,000, which I feel it's a very low. So I don't know when the asset replacement cost was updated for this pump, but it is still low. So basically I did the exact same analysis, but at the individual level. So I know it's too small here, but the first table up here is for that trickling filter that are $850,000. And I pulled out all the work orders, corrective, preventive, and grand law. So only the 2 types that I was able to pull out. I'm sure there has been some proactive and other types of work order being done. But again, this may be related to the work order was cut at that entire pumping system, or even at the facility, which I didn't have time to go through every single one of them, right, to validate all that and mine them. But anyhow, so for this pump, I was able to retrieve a value from 2011 to 2021, so which is better than the overall pump analysis. But essentially, I did the same sort of comparison, right? So I added the all the work order cost for each year, and I just compare that with the replacement cost. So it's not too it's not too different from what I did from the overall pump station analysis. And then second pump, again, it's that 5,000 sump pump from a pump station. And this time I was able to get it from 2000 to 2022, about 20 years span there. And I did the same analysis. So this one had some operations work order showed up, but also I have preventive and corrective here. And in terms of the result, so the stacked columns are the dollars of each work order type. So blue is corrective, orange is preventive, and the first the primary axis is the axis for that, right? So it kind of fluctuates, and some years don't have any corrective. But again, this may relate to the data quality issues that they've done some work, but they are recorded at a wrong level. But anyhow, so having that aside, the secondary axis is showing that percentage of these work orders spending to the replacement costs. So the black line is the each year. I mean, obviously it follows the stack chart, but at a different scale on the right-hand side. And this red dotted line is the annual average, which is about 0.2%. And I'll show you the second graph, but 0.2% seems really low. Remember, it was about 7.8% for the 618 pumps. But this one is a very expensive pump, and their annual spend compared to the replacement value is fairly low, which sort of makes sense. The second pump, which is a $5,000 pump, has a slightly different story. Again, the stack bar chart is the work order by types, and then the black is the percentage of the work order spent by the replacement cost, and then this red line is the annual average. And this time it's about 10%, because $5,000 is pretty cheap compared to $850 for sure. And then the relative annual spend is higher for a cheaper pump than the more expensive pumps. So any questions on these two examples?
Hi, this is Deb. I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. This is pretty close. We're not we haven't done as detailed an analysis quite yet. We're still working on doing like replacement cost information. But when you talk about, I don't know why there's a difference and why they didn't spend here or there, what we find is in some cases like a $5,000, something that's $5,000, their strategy is to run it to fail and then just replace, because the cost is it can be so minimal versus rebuild. And other times it's rebuild in-house, not send it out. So there's different things, and you can find out, but you have to dig into the details. And if you are missing some costs, some of that could be, like you said, it can be captured somewhere else, so in the wrong place. The other piece could be that it could be we're not capturing the contracting, the contractor, if there's contractor work. So a couple of things there. But I love this because we're almost there ourselves doing this same kind of thing.
Nice. No, thanks for your comments. And yeah, you're bang on around the inaccuracies or insufficient work order data is stemming from the challenges that we're having around the asset hierarchy and the practice that's been used to cut work order at what level, right? So thank you so much. And Mert, you have a hand up?
Yeah, so I like Deb's edit, point about, hey, certain things can be like run to failure, which definitely is the case. But I think there is still a, relationship there between things that are small and are not run to failure and that are large and not run to failure either. Like a, 50 horsepower pump, I think will incur a higher percentage of its replacement value as a, per year as maintenance cost, because like oil change takes about the same, same time. It's just that, you still spend the same time on it pretty much, but like, relatively speaking, still there's a difference there. So I think that's a good thing that came out of your analysis, Chris, is that we may need to account for some of those, I don't know, like the size differences when we think about this. And I'll mention this anyway, but yeah, as Deb said, we definitely have some corrections in our data too. I'll go over it, but we definitely have the issue around like if we do a replacement internally, we capture that cost, like a new pump cost, whatever in the work order. But if there's a contractor that does it, only our time associated with like shop driving reviews and escorting the contractor to site like is captured. So there is some, we need to think about maybe like an adjustment factor or something for some of these things too. Anyway, I'll shut up right there.
No, that's a good comment, Mark. So the next step is well, I'll have a next step slide. So maybe Mert, do you want to present your data before we
Sure,
get to
yeah,
the
absolutely. Now I can
rest of the
jump
slide
in
deck?
and show everybody, the sort of the steps I went through my analysis. And I kind of want to also, I actually made a list of all the data corrections I had to do to the raw data I got, because I think, we may be suffering, we may be feeling the same pain. So I wanted to sort of point those out a little bit too. So let me share this Excel file. I assume you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So this is the data I got extracted with the help of our database administrator from Oracle VAM, which is our current CMMS. And I asked the information only for pumps and pump motors as our, we have an asset type designation and an asset class designation, and that sort of helps us sort of filter that out initially. I'm not necessarily very happy with our current designation, what is it, variety or repertoire, like everything will be pump, for example. Like there is no differentiation between like large, small, or, centrifugal PD, or, like that sort of thing. So I think there is some, improvements to be made there, but at least we're able to get the data out. So what you see here is on a work order and actually a work order and task number combination basis. Most of the time, most work orders will only have the one task, but some of them may have multiple. Anyway, so it's a work order and task combination. And then we have information on whether or not something is sort of like proactive or reactive maintenance activity. And then if it is proactive, it could be like PM as in preventive, or like a PDM as in like predictive. So, like a vibration test or something on the pump motors. And then we just have the status. Anyway, so this is when it was created. This is the asset ID number, just a unique identifier. This is the description of the assets. You can see that the query captures some of the retired assets as well, which actually do get replaced most of the time. I mean, sometimes they're just retired and that's it, but sometimes they just get replaced. And then we do have some information here that I'm going to briefly cover. In service date, so when it was installed. Estimated install date, when we don't have an actual number, but we were able to do a, sort of a Kentucky vintage, whatever estimate. That's where we track that. Labor hours, that's the regular, like non-overtime labor hours for that specific work order and task combination. Labor charge, so that generally, depending on who worked on it, there's like a different unit number there for labor hours, so we use that. Labor overtime hours, self-explanatory. Labor overtime charge, again, self-explanatory. And then the equipment type. So if a specific equipment was used in that task and only one, it shows up here. If it's more than one, I'm not sure if the query picks it up. And then the equipment amount. So basically the amount, like if we were to lease like a concrete plate to put on the roadway because, we don't want cars to fall in it or something. So that would be captured there. And then the material cost, the amount of material we use. Anyway, so that's like the raw data we got. So I looked at it and then I noticed a few issues with this output. So I went through a set of cleaning steps. So I'm going to cover that next. But just for now, remember, I'm going to count this. So we have a little over 8,000. So it's 8,033 records of the work order type and the task combinations so far. Scott, your hand went up.
Yeah, just a question, Mert. Does this data stay with the pump, or does it stay with the location, or how do you both of you handle that?
So in our case, this stays with either the pump or the pump motor, wherever it is connected to. And then if it's retired, we mark it up as retired, and then it just continues to stay there. There is a location identifier where each of these pumps were. For example, a pump is retired, put away. The work order to date is, stays with that retired, now retired status asset. And then the same location ID receives a new pump ID. So we actually can get the same query for a specific location as well as a specific facility, specific pump ID as well. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, wondering how do you handle that, Chris? I mean, if you move the pump from one location to another.
Yeah, no, similar to what Mert said. We can also capture all the data for that positions or the assets that's in the current position. So when we seldomly relocate a pump, we usually retire a pump. If that happens, then we can reset the work order for that pump itself. But we can also store those work order data from the previous retired pump in the same location, so that if you want to see all the work orders over 3-4 pumps throughout its life, then we can do that as well. So we use this parking lot analogy that position is really like a parking stall, and these assets are cars going in and out, and so we can do the work order in both levels.
Thank you.
So what I don't like about our terminology is we have to use some of the existing fields in our current CMMS to sort of like make it work. So our location ID is not called location ID, it's called like equipment ID, because that was a field that was available. And then we have something called facility ID that is the unique asset identifier. But we realize this is the case. We have documentation pointing out what these fields do. So, but it's in an ideal universe, they have better names. Yeah, thanks for your question, Scott. So just remember, before I move on from the slide, there is a little over 8,000 records here, like 8,033 records here that the extract had. But I noticed issues, so I want to cover some of that stuff with you all. So we had 833, and by the time I was done with cleaning, I was actually down to 4,315. So I lost about like half of these records along the way to clean up activities. Just for some measures, so our earliest work order is from 2009, and our latest work order is from like January 22. So we hardly had any 2022 data when I got this extracted a while back. But a couple of things, look, check these out. So I had to remove work orders with negative labor hours. Like, I don't know what they are. I don't even know how we have negative labor hours on some work orders. I'm guessing it's because of some sort of a correction that took place in the system, but I don't have any idea where it went. Maybe somebody tracked hours against pumps, and then, all of a sudden, it went somewhere else. I don't know why they moved more than what they initially put there, but I don't know. So I removed them. There are not a lot of them, but there was some. There were some work orders, but there were no labor hours tracked. So I didn't want them to skew the data, because obviously there were labor hours, but they may have been tracked elsewhere at the end of the day, at the pump station level, for example. I removed data associated with this one location we have. It's one of our, where we add some chemicals to drinking water. I removed it because I actually don't have any asset attribute or replacement value data for those yet, so then I couldn't do any, like metrics. So I removed it for that purpose. Yeah, so our indirect charges are not included. We only show direct labor cost in our database. So, you have to, see it with a, what is it, experience it, whatever, with a grain of salt. So generally, even though it changes year to year, and multiplying it with 2, so basically I think about 100% actually accounts for some of our indirect charges. So I did that. Like last year it was like 93%. I saw it in the budget yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. Okay, so oh yeah, so this is interesting. So the extract you get, like the numbers are like text, so you have to convert them to numbers so you can actually do maths with them. Removing the okay, so the pump captured also 25 of our well pumps, on groundwater pumping. So I had to remove those because they actually are a whole different ball game when it comes to their O&M practices. So I don't want to put them in the same bucket as our pump station pumps because they will sway things. So I removed those. Again, that's an indicator of how we may want to use the type and the class designations in our database to not just call everything pump and call it a day. We want to slice and dice it in a meaningful way. So this is an example for that. I removed sample water pumps. They are too small. I removed some portable pumps. They actually generally run to failure. So I doubt they even carry the true cost of work anyway. I removed peristaltic pumps, similar, PD, different ball game. Same thing with magnetic transfer pumps. That was like one distribution pump to move some chemicals around tanks. So that's not really the same thing as a pump station pump. There was a fire truck pump. We were tracking it. I don't even know why, but we removed it. I removed it. I removed oil pump, removed the chemical dosing pumps because they are not the same thing. They are really small, relatively small things that, they're like, again, a different ball game. And then I removed the treatment system tax. Again, I don't have the attribute data to make that work, like the cost or the install date even. And then I have some caveats here, and that is some CIP projects we do in-house. So we do track the full cost of that in our work order system, including purchasing of the pumps. But there are some external CIP projects, and I doubt that all the costs associated with them are captured in the work order system. The costs are captured in the financial system, through invoices and everything else. So we have them there, but not here. So that link currently, I think, is not great. So we gotta take that we gotta keep that in mind. Anyway, so I'm sure there's more things that I can improve upon, but this was a quick list of the things that I applied.
So Mert,
just a quick question.
So with that correction, how many pumps are those over 4,000 work order covering?
Yes. Yes, I have a little over 250, including the retired ones. I'm sorry, over 200, including the retired ones. I have 237 pump and motor combinations. So divided by 2, roughly, Chris. Each pump has a motor. So what is that? My good math is pointing me at around 168 or something.
Got it.
Pumps, yeah. But yeah, we end up with this, and then I add, the things that you see in yellow because they were not included in the original extract. So I added estimated install years, calculation here between the two things that we have, either the known or the estimated in-service date. I brought in the horsepower data. I brought in the replacement value. Again, this was in text, so it wasn't registering it well. So like I converted them to values. And then we have the labor totals after the indirect cost adjustment has been added, that thing I mentioned about multiplying it by 2. And that gives me a total cost, like for each work order and the task combination. So we have the material, equipment, and the adjusted labor costs added basically all together. So that one line, like one final cost item for a specific work order and task combination. I did some pivot analysis, pivot tables that results in this. So what you see here is I didn't necessarily divide it too much, but I have operational, proactive, and reactive costs tracked here. And I only did aggregate because I was kind of hoping to be able to do a similar analysis to Chris, maybe pick up a few pumps. I just couldn't get to that, but I figured let's do the aggregate just to give us an idea of what numbers we're dealing with. And the 2009 data was kind of sporadic. There wasn't any reactive work orders, which is like super surprising. They obviously exist. So I took 2009 out. And then there's like 2022 as well. That's super new. So there's not much there either. So I want to really just focus on like this little stretch here in the middle. So this is just a quick pivot analysis of the, the totals for the maintenance costs for proactive and reactive maintenance for the most part. Proactive is actually a combination of predictive and preventive. It is possible to divide it into two sections. And reactive is the, what it is, like corrective maintenance activities as well. And I believe it actually also includes some of the pipe renewals or rebuilds that we were able to do in-house. So that's one other thing that I want to correct this for in the future. Remove internal, so some of the internal pump renewals, maybe like overestimating the corrective work, which I want to account for. Like I want to find a way to take those out. There is like a CIP work, not work class, but work category designation. So a few of the people who work on these can verify that that's where they track it. I can try to like back those out. But keeping some of those issues in mind. By the way, another correction is I just took the most recent replacement value and then that's what I used like historically, even though we may have added a few pumps since 2009 to our list. So the replacement value probably changed a little bit. Like it probably was a little less than what it's today in today's dollars in 2009. So that actually is that's a quick adjustment I can do too, but it shouldn't affect the results too much. At least for our discussion purposes, but here it is. So these are the numbers. So these are the percent maintenance costs, as maintenance costs is a percentage of the replacement value aggregated for pumps and pump motors on a per year basis. So you'll see, first of all, like Chris noticed, there's a delta between there's a significant difference between reactive and proactive maintenance dollars. We kind of all know, I think intuitively, or even with data, that reactive maintenance is more expensive. So we can actually see it here too, against the same assets. So we see that. And then one of the other things that you may notice is that there is a big variation, especially on the reactive side. So the lowest number here is like 0.01%, which is like non-existent, and the highest number that we see is 4.3%. Now some of this may be coming from, like, again, pump renewals, not necessarily maintenance. So I want to find a way to correct that. So if you take out these two largest things like out of the 2021 and 2020 data out, and then average the rest. Where's my average? Average is 0.45%, for example. So we'll be somewhere, I feel like, between 0.45% and 1% after we make some corrections. Deb, your hand is up.
Just a comment on the reactive. We found that because we don't have consistency across our plants, we've found that in some cases they're using reactive when they should be using PM. And the reason that they're using reactive is, there's various reasons, but one of them is because they don't actually activate a PM. This particular plant, they don't activate a PM. They just wait until they decide, oh, now we're gonna do something with this, and then they code it reactive. So just in order to kind of make sure that your data is all what it means, it's good to look into those and kind of ask questions about, is that a true reactive versus they coded it incorrectly just to get the work done.
Yeah, yes, understood. So we do have recurring, PMs in everything pretty much, but that doesn't mean that, of course, that what you just described doesn't exist either. So that is an excellent point. Yeah, you got to know the practices, I guess.
It's hard to normalize data.
Oh, for sure. So that's why, I was thinking if we look at like big data a little bit, like sort of aggregated, I was hoping that over time, if you look at like, I don't know, 10 years or something, maybe certain things will, like some of those errors can hide behind the noise almost. I'm not, I don't know for sure, but that I thought maybe that could be a possibility.
You gotta start somewhere.
You gotta, yeah, exactly. You gotta start somewhere. And like one of our challenges also is our supervisors are heavily loaded. We don't have like a standard, like the industry best practice planner scheduler function. So supervisors need to do all the supervising plus that. And you can imagine that, like I know from myself that when I'm doing so much, I can only do like so much of everything. So certain things are, sort of like not done as well as they could be just because there's not enough hours in the day. So that's a concern as well. But I'm looking at this and, I'm basically, it's helping me at least draw a line, especially if I can introduce that correction factor for like the not maintenance, but like the renewal activities that are captured as maintenance. If I can get those out, I think this will be more meaningful. But the main lesson for me here is that we've been collecting this data since like, you can see like relatively well since 2010. Since 2013, we've been also adding failure modes to things on the corrective side even. But even us, like, with a lot of data, like I had to do so much to this that I cannot just get this, from the system this way. Like I have to like do all kinds of things to it before I could even like starting to get some analysis out of it. So I think it's a bit of a lesson learned in that regard for me as well. Yeah, and this is just and this last slide is just the asset list. So I have my, very high level. So these are each our individual assets. And then these are the replacement values that I'm using along with like the horsepower data, just to sort of give you an idea of what that looks like. So if we exclude the retired assets, what do we got? We have 212 pump motor combinations, so 106 individual pumps, if you will, in our 38 plus the groundwater, so like almost 40 pump stations.
Mert and Chris, did you want, we've got a little more than 10 minutes left. Question whether you wanted to get to the little survey and the other slides.
Yeah, I can maybe shoot it back to Chris. I mean, he may have had more slides, I guess he said.
Yep. I will go through the rest of the slide. I mean, just few slides here. Do you see the deck?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So the challenges and limitations. I mean, we talked about that asset hierarchy issue, inconsistent work order assignments, and the second item is sort of Mert touched on the pump and motor combination, that kind of concept that when I look at the data, like there is a definite sort of work order that's dedicated to a pump, but also there are sort of related work orders to a pump, like the motors and appurtenances around the pump. So how do we sort of draw the boundary of this type of analysis? Because I mean, failing a valve that supports a pump, to me, there's an argument that it is part of the pumping system issue. So that's one area of challenges. And the depth of analysis, right? We didn't look at, I mean, I didn't look at the estimated service life of each pump and the remaining service life based on the current asset condition. And then also, pump characteristics, like Mert has a horsepower information there, but that's my next step to understand, what types of pumps out there, and is there, particular characteristics that we see based on the size and types. I mean, size, we sort of know big pump versus a small pump, but mainly it's the type and operation context that may play a role to better understand the costing profile over the life. And last but not least, the data quality. It's the the work order type assignments. Deborah mentioned about the corrective, corrective was using or the reactive was using for PMs. Replacement cost data. I share with you that 130 of those pumps out of 618 didn't have a replacement cost data, so that's another gap. Pump specifications and other data gaps are some of the challenges and limitations of this analysis. So in terms of next steps, we need to do continual data cleansing, and it's it's a way bigger sort of initiative that we should work together with IT and O&M, and further analysis using the pump specs condition scores. I'm really curious to know, based on the current condition and remaining service life, is there sort of big changes to the work order cost? Those decay curve that has bathtub curve or shape, or the J or reverse J, those type of analysis. And also, Mert mentioned about a template for life cycle costing analysis model. So we're probably gonna use this as a sort of pilot data, and we're curious to know how other utilities are experiencing in terms of the work order spending, so that we can create a better representative life cycle costing model. And then, yeah, also Mert talked about this involving the energy costing data and inviting people from the team energy, so that we can include those informations in the life cycle cost. And understand data analytics. There was a talk from the data analytics group that they may want to share some of their thinking around digital asset management plans and other data analytics aspects of asset management planning. So yeah, last but not least, this is the asset management survey that Cello put together. So there are 5 questions, I mean 4 bullets, but basically one question is divided into vertical asset condition and linear asset condition. And then the start with the asset inventory and registry. That's really the data quality challenges that we're facing. And then asset condition next, and then the 2 risk-related questions. And the link is available here. So I don't know, Cello, if you want to share that link at this point.
Yeah, it's in the chat line.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's in the chat window is the link to the survey. And you will not be able to fill it out. You will not be able to fill it out in time today, but if you take a few minutes, and we can look at the results next time. And Mert and Chris, we can also send a link to some folks who didn't participate, who didn't make it the meeting today, to see if we can get some additional data. Is that okay with you?
I think we can fill it out.
Sorry?
I think we can fill it out today if you're
Just takes 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
I already answered the first question. I'm doing the second one.
Okay.
Cello, so I submitted my response last night. I don't know if that's still there or I have to
Yeah, it
redo
is.
it.
No, you don't have to. I saw.
Oh,
I
it's
saw.
there. Oh,
Yeah, I saw that one response. Yes.
I feel like there should be a in between yes and no.
Well,
It's
yeah. I took the questions. These questions are from AWWA, sort of national survey, and the reason that I used the same format is so we could get the, compare the numbers with the sort of a broader kind of like national situation. And I didn't use all the questions, just a few. So if I had a Likert scale or something like that, they only had yes, no. So, it'd be difficult to compare. Okay, I got the first response in. I mean, the one additional to Chris. Three responses, okay. And average time to complete is 3 minutes.
I'm just surprised Microsoft is working.
Okay. We have 4 responses now. And I'm going to contrast them. You'll see, Noemi, so that's I can contrast with these other numbers here from the, you know,
So that's AWWA on the left. Yeah.
on the left, correct. And the responses as they're coming in are going to be on the right. It's not the same. We have 5 now. So, but this is just the first question, and then, you know, I can look at other. Let me see. Yeah, so then this would be the first question, and this is the second question. So
I assume Cello and Scott are not filling it out. So 1,
that's
2,
correct.
3, 4, 5, 6 total. You're expecting.
Well, we're expecting.
And Deb is driving, she said. So 5 total is what we're expecting.
Yeah, well, I sure hope Deb is not filling this out while she's
No,
driving. Yeah, Mert, take it away. Let me know which question you want me to go to, or which one you want to discuss. Or
well, I mean, I'm already seeing like a bit of a interesting trend in that, you know, I see more blue for the second question than the first one. That just tells me that we do some of the, like as a collective, we do some of the condition assessment work.
yeah.
Already. It's just that it may not be like organized in an asset hierarchy and inventory.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. So we should be, Chell, do you mind like emailing the output out to us on this one?
Of course, I don't mind.
At the top of the hour, so.
Yeah, would you like to wait till others answer, or do you want me to send you right now?
We can wait. I mean, I don't mind waiting a few days since our next meeting is not another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I will definitely, if you'd like, we can work on, you can send out, and you and Chris can send out an email letting people, so you know, I can wait a couple of days and then send you the updated thing.
Yeah, no, you can send me the link now. We can email the larger team as well. And then, you know, and then before our next meeting, we can look at the outcome then. Okay. And then we'll work on some of the next step items Chris noted in his last slide there. We can start working on the template. We could maybe apply some of these corrections if we are able to the initial data set. But one thing that I'll tell you is that I'm a little discouraged in that, like, I thought maybe like at least I could use our data more readily, but you know, I cannot. So I still need to like play with it to make it meaningful. So we may still need to make some assumptions as a group down the line.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment that I don't know if it counts, but one of the things for BUC, for San Francisco BUC, is that we have two teams. One for the collection system, so for the majority of the linear assets, we have a different person handling that, or that a different team basically, and then. So those answers for myself, I kind of had to guess because I don't have enough knowledge for that part. And then the other thing is that, we did some condition assessment probably now more than 10 years ago. So that data, even though it is there, is in our CMMS, it's old. I mean, we don't have a team. We have some framework to how to do it, but we cannot do it. I mean, we haven't done it. I guess that's the thing, and we don't have a program to do it right now. Yeah, a couple of comments there.
Yeah, no, good point. No, I mean, that reminds me, one of the things that I had to do like on an AMP I worked on recently. Like I actually had to add business logic to the condition data because like you said, some of it is like, I don't know, like it last inspected 6 years ago. Like I cannot just put that condition rating, and use, I cannot rely on that. So if it was older than 2 or 3 years, I forgot which one, but I basically went back, you know what, might as well just also do an age-based estimate here. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I will. The link is to the surveys here. I'll put it in the email. Also, Mert and Chris, if you want to communicate, it would be nice to get a broader thing. But there are two questions. Noemi, question number 2 is for vertical assets, and number 3 is the same question for the linear assets, which is like the pipes and stuff like that. So that might help a little bit with the two groups, Maybe each group would answer one question,
Right, exactly. I just need more time to look into that.
Sure. No, sure.
You can adjust, I'm sure. You can submit a new one even.
Yeah. Okay. Mert, we're a little bit over the hour, so perhaps I will stop recording. Is that okay?
Yes, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And then